joining us today. We're here with Dr. Rinta to go over just some most commonly asked questions about nutrition for dogs and cats. Our first question is, how do I know when my pet will eat enough? Do I leave the food out all day, or will they self-regulate? What do I need to look for?
That's a good question, because like humans, some of our dogs and our cats will overeat if we just leave a big bowl of food out for them all day. So I recommend that you do feed your dog or cat a measured amount of food, a breakfast and a dinner, so twice a day. And you do want to look on your own individual bag of food or can of food to know how much to feed. And follow their requirements, and it goes by weight. And then I do recommend to go on the lower side of what's on the bag, because most of the bags tend to have on there much more food than the dog would ever eat. So go ahead and just feed on the lower amount, and then if that's not enough, you can always add food.
And does it matter what type of bowl that I feed my pet from?
Yes, it does matter what type of bowl, because a lot of dogs and cats are allergic to plastics, of all things. It sounds silly, and they make lots of really neat plastic bowls, but I recommend to use stainless steel or ceramic, and then they won't have any skin issues around their lower lip.
Okay. And with all the different dog and cat pet foods that are on the market, it gets very confusing because there's so many. How do I know that I'm picking out a high quality food?
That's a very good question. Nutrition can be very confusing because there are so many options out there and so many opinions on the different foods. But my best advice would be to always check the package, the labeling, for two things. You want to check to make sure that it's a complete and balanced diet. That's so important. And that's specific for the life stage of the pet, whether it's a kitten, adult, or a senior, because a senior dog would have very different needs than a kitten, and an adult is also going to have different needs than a kitten. And so check that, and then also make sure on the label that the food has had proper feeding trials. And the way that you can be assured of that is on the label it'll actually say AAFCO approved. It's AAFCO. So just make sure that that's on the label.
Okay. My pet is a picky eater, and I'm starting a new food. Do I just wait him out until he finally eats, or do I just give up and go back to the old food?
Yeah. When you do a food transition, it can be challenging for dogs and cats because very often they get accustomed to the current food that you're feeding. So be really patient when you do a food change. We recommend to do a food change for a dog over a 7 to 10 day period where you're adding small amounts of the new food to a portion of the old food so that they can slowly transition. And so be really patient with that. Okay. With cats, they're even worse, more challenging. They're very, very picky, and they imprint on their food also. So when you introduce a new food, you want to give them sometimes even 2 weeks duration before you give up on that new food. Again, do small increments of the new food. Always leave a portion of the old food out. And the current recommendation is to put on one bowl the cat's old food and on a second bowl the new food. That way the kitty will still eat the old food if they are not eating the new food. Because cats specifically, if they stop eating, can become very, very ill. So you never want your kitty to go, more than a day or into a second day without eating, without consulting your veterinarian.
Okay. Does a pet need to take extra vitamins?
If they're on a completely balanced diet, they don't need extra vitamins. Sometimes there are unique needs of an individual patient where your veterinarian would recommend to do some type of supplementation. But most complete and balanced diets have all the vitamins and minerals within the diet.
Okay. Some breeders recommend giving vitamin C to pets. Is that something that's recommended?
Yeah, very often there are breeders, especially of large dogs, that will recommend to their new adoptees to give the puppies vitamin C. And the philosophy or the thought behind it is that it's going to help prevent joint disease and specifically hip dysplasia. There's no scientific evidence that says that vitamin C is going to help prevent hip dysplasia, but there's still a lot of breeders out there today that will recommend that.
Is it okay to feed my pet bones?
No, I am not a fan of feeding your pet bones. There are different opinions on that, but I think that it can potentially cause too many problems, digestive, and also bones can fracture the teeth.
Is it okay to feed a raw meat diet?
That is a controversial subject right now. There are a lot of proponents for it and against it. I think the biggest concern is safety, if both for the animal and the food handler, because raw meat does potentially have infectious components in it. E. coli disease, salmonella, and trichiniasis all can be contracted from undercooked meat. So we have to be really careful. And especially if we have somebody in the house, again, a food handler that's taking chemotherapy for themselves, they're going to be at a higher risk for getting infected. So just consult your veterinarian about their opinion and they can help you work through that.
Okay. Have a dog that loves to eat meat, like cooked hamburger, turkey, chicken. Is that okay if that's their primary diet?
Yeah, if it's cooked, there are some homemade balanced diets out there, and there is a website, it's balanceit.com, that you can go to and actually get a very nutritionally balanced diet, because if you're making something at home, it's really hard to have it balanced and know that you're not deficient in specific vitamins and minerals. If you're going to do that, you'd never want the meat to be more than 40% of their diet. It needs to be less than that, and again, it has to be completely balanced. So I would say to seek, your veterinarian's advice or check into one of the websites available. There are websites out there that claim to balance diets perfectly, but you have to get your veterinarian's advice on the specific one that they would recommend so that you're led to a proper site.
Okay. Do pets require milk?
They don't require milk. Some pets like to drink milk, and some owners really like to give their pets milk. We have to be careful because dogs and cats are lactose intolerant, and that means that sometimes they'll develop diarrhea from it, and that's not good.
Okay. And my pet likes to join us at the dinner table. Is it okay to feed table scraps from the table?
I just think that's a bad habit. It's better to avoid having your pets near you when you're at the dinner table. It's too tempting for us to give them extra treats, and it's too tempting for them to be there and beg. Okay. So I think that they should eat their meal when you eat your meal, and then it just avoids that bad habit.
Okay. And then some pets seem to have a lot of gas. Is there some way that I can help with that?
Yeah. Flatulence, which is the term for gas, can occur sometimes just from medical situations if a dog has internal parasites. So if your dog has gas, it's good to have a fecal sample evaluation for internal parasites. If that's negative, you might want to consider trying a different food, because the gas is produced by bacteria that are growing in the colon abnormally. And when they're growing, the gas is a byproduct. And so something's off in the colon when that happens. And so for some reason that food is not agreeing with that particular dog or cat. So it's good to try a different diet. Sometimes going through to a completely different brand is helpful. If you're struggling with that, consult your veterinarian. They can help you with an alternative.
Okay. And I'm worried about bloat in my dog. What should I consider at home, watch for, and help prevent that?
Yeah. Bloat is a really scary situation because it can be fatal very quickly, especially in large, deep-chested dogs. So when you have a large, deep-chested dog, you can talk with your veterinarian, because at times of spaying and neutering, when the veterinarian can go in and actually do a surgery to tack the stomach to help prevent it. So there are specialists in the area that will do that. But at home, as far as feeding, you can do some things to help prevent it also. One would be to feed smaller, multiple meals. So instead of the 2 meals a day, maybe feed 4 small meals, like break breakfast into 2 meals, break dinner into 2 meals. The other thing you can do is you can feed your dog on an elevated surface so that potentially not gulping as much air may potentially decrease the chance of bloat. The other thing that's most important is at the end of the meal is to not let your dog go outside and run and play for at least an hour, because what we know is if the dog eats a big meal, goes out and exercises and drinks a bunch of water, that can increase the volume of the stomach, and there can be gas in there that can then, with the exercise, the stomach can bloat and TORS. So those are the things that you could do to help prevent that.
Okay. And then having overweight pets, how serious of a problem is obesity in dogs and cats?
Yeah, obesity, just like with humans in the United States, is a significant disease of dogs and cats. And part of it is because of overfeeding. We tend to feed our dogs when we love them and our cats extra treats just out of love, and kind of combined with lack of exercise. So it's important to really be on top of that. You can take your dog and your cat in for their annual examinations, and your veterinarian can tell you if your pet is a perfect body condition, overweight or underweight. And then you can, if your pet is overweight, go onto a plan of weight loss, combined with exercise to get them back on track. It's better to start now to get them back on track than otherwise every year they just gain more and more, and it's really difficult for us to get that reversed.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Rinta. That ends our section on nutrition today.